Hello, everyone. This is Constance from Mysterious Galaxy. Thank you so very much for joining us. Now, we all know I have a great weakness for YA fantasy, so I'm very much looking forward to tonight's event. We have CK Donnelly, who is going to be in conversation with Sherry, so CK is in the center of my perspective, and then on the other edge, we have Sherry, and they are going to be discussing the first book in her series. I know I asked you, and I don't want to TRINE Rising. I want to make sure.
TRINE Rising, the first book in the Kinderra Saga.
I'm like, I got nervous. I asked you, and and then I got nervous and didn't want to butcher. But TRINE Rising is the first in the series. Oh, that makes sense.
Or some of you may be familiar with astrology. There's a 3 whatever alignment, and that's a trine. So.
Oh. Is that where well, I don't want to, I'm already wanting to ask you questions.
It means something entirely differently, but yes, it's just based on 3. It's just based on the Greek root for 3.
Oh, that's super cool. We've already learned, we already had one question asked and answered.
Oh, we got factoids and
Well, for all my other fellow YA lovers, this is just an awesome YA adventure with a great coming-of-age story, and of course, all the awesome things we love in a good YA fantasy. I'm not going to give away much else because we have a great discussion ahead of us, but just a little bit of house rules for everyone before I pass it off to Sherry. If you look to the right-hand side, you will notice our lovely chat section where I see lots of awesome love going on, so thank you so much for sharing all of the book love and for joining us tonight. And then also importantly, if you look down below, you'll see that lovely button that says Ask a Question. And indeed, as you may have guessed, that is where you can ask our author a question. Make sure you just click that. I already see one question, so yay! And I really encourage all of you to ask questions because it's the best part of events. The author is at your mercy, so make sure you use that. And then most importantly, if you want to support CK as well as Mysterious Galaxy, there is a very beautiful green button down below that will say purchase book. And indeed, yes, we all do the pointy thing now. And indeed, that is where you can purchase this book. And I highly recommend you check out TRINE Rising after the event. And on that note, I'm going to pass it off to you, Sherry. Everyone, I will see you at the end of the event.
Okie dokie.
Hey,
are we ready? We are ready.
We are ready. We are more than ready. We're more ready. Getting our questions.
Here it is. This is the book we're talking about tonight, people. It is an amazing book, and let's just get off right as we speak here and tell us a little bit about why it took you 20 years to get this book out. Like, really?
Okay, first, full disclosure, I'm not a procrastinator. I am anything but. So that isn't the reason. I would just have to say it's life. This is a big endeavor for anyone to write a book. At the time, I was starting a new career as a journalist, so learning writing and writing a novel at the same time. And that just took a lot of different directions. And then as years go by, I sent it in, I finished it. It took me, when I decided to change some things and I finished what would become a decent draft. It was really like the 3rd draft, but the first one. That took about 18 months. So then after polishing it a little bit, I sent it in for a critique with a very high-level author. She runs boot camps. She's a producer and everything, and she ripped it to shreds. And it just devastated me. I almost quit my journalist job. So we put it on hold for a little bit to think about that, and life happens as it would. I didn't touch it again for almost 10 years, for about 7 years. Picked it up again in 2016, I believe, and I knew I had to rip it all apart and start, at least rip out the middle and start, the ending was good and the beginning was good, but I had to rework the middle. And so that took about a year. And then we started getting serious, and I started going to workshops and really honing my craft, and took one very long book and whacked it into 3 because there were some midpoint plot points that could support that. So that's why it just took all that time, and I'm glad it did because I learned how to write.
Yeah. Well, let me just say it is worth the wait because this book is so incredible, and it's really the characters, you know, they just come to life, and you provide a map, and also you provide a language. So tell us a little bit about the map, and then morphing over to creating your own language.
Yeah. First, I'll start with the map. That was actually more or less the first thing that I put together for this particular story, for what I knew was going to be a saga. I figured I wanted to get literally the lay of the land to understand where people would be coming and going, what it looked like, where mountain ranges were, because that impacts people's culture, that impacts weather, and impacts travel patterns. And I knew I wanted something that would contain just about every type of ecosystem and every kind of diverse population I could think of. So we've got everybody. This is a full continent, and it was fun to explore that. Then that helped me create my toolbox along with developing my system of magic. With that, I wanted to create a language because I think that gives a very interesting perspective and a dose of reality. It makes that made-up world feel so much more real and gives it a sense of age and evolution, because you can see where something was and how they don't speak it so much anymore, and it's kind of relegated to maybe their version of the Bible, but maybe the older generation still speak it a little bit. And it just gave it that sense of realism, that this is a living, breathing, organic culture.
Yeah, and it was not difficult to follow. At first it was a little, whoa, what's that? But then the words are really easy you can easily follow what the narrative is. So it does not interfere with the narrative. It's really cool.
It's a bit of bastardized Latin, Spanish, a little bit of Gaelic, and very, very few made-up words. I might take a real word from one of those languages and then tweak it a little bit. What could be, I don't know. But, like amulet, and I just put amulete or something like that, So you should be able to follow it. Most of us have studied Spanish in high school or something like that. So what I wanted to give this feeling is, as you read it, you might be able to pick out a couple words and you automatically get the gist of it. So it places you in as if you were one of the people living in this world, that, I kind of know what this is saying. So immediately it gives you that connection, even though it's a made-up language.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about the characters that you created, and leave the protagonist as last. She is the star.
Well, what I wanted to do is, first of all, I love kind of traditional high fantasy. I like that feeling of medieval Europe, and everybody runs around looking like Robin Hood, and I like it. I think it's fun. I love the quest, so I think that's fun. But what I wanted to do is take a lot of the everyday, we call them tropes, or their themes is really what a trope is, and spin them on their ear. So, we have the chosen one, but that person thinks that they're actually evil. We have the antagonist, the bad guy. He thinks he is quite literally the savior of this land. That's why he was created. So often all of our heroes and heroines in virtually any story are orphans, or like I like to call, if anybody here is a Hallmark romance fan, Hallmark movies, They always have some parent that tragically died, and we don't know why. So we call, it's the TV disease. So I didn't want that for my characters. I wanted them to have parents in a loving home. That also meant I had to have one hell of a call to action to boot them out the door. I mean, if you think about Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, his entire family is killed. His home has been laid to waste. All of his friends are gone. He probably has a price on his head because he's carrying the droids. He has to leave. There's no choice in that. He has to leave. There is nothing left for him to do. I wanted my protagonist to make a choice, to be able to, that she could stay and just be her ordinary self, but she had to find a reason to go. So we have those characters. So we have parents. I don't know how many of you out there are parents. What wouldn't you do if you thought your child's life was threatened? Oh my God, I don't know. I know what I would do to save my dog. I mean, there is not a human child that is loved more than my dog. You would do anything. So that's where we've got, some parents in here. So I really like to think of this book is really a crossover. I mean, they call it YA because the protagonists are 15, 16. But it really spans all voices. We've got, everybody from teenagers to 30-somethings to 50-somethings to old people, 90, 100 years old. So everybody's represented in here. So that then brings us, of course, to Marana Panal. She is my protagonist. She is born with all three of the magical aspects, which is exceedingly rare in their world. It's rare enough to have even one. I figured it out, like 1 in 1,000 babies are born that have magical powers of just one flavor. That's either defending, my kind of version of Jedi Knights, seeing, that's, clairvoyance and whatnot, and healing, which they can accelerate healing properties. She is one of the few people born with all three. However, she has been plagued with absolutely terrifying visions that if she uses her powers in any major way, she will lay waste to everything she loves. She will lay waste to her homeland. So she's terrified to use it. And so she keeps it very close to the vest. The only person that she tells that she has these powers is the love interest, Teague. Now, Teague is a Muggle. Teague doesn't have any powers. He's born to two very powerful Tolkien, that's my magic users, but he is born ordinary like the rest of us. So he also gives us our everyman voice. But just think about this love connection between someone who has incredible powers and someone who has nothing. Gee, talk about the girl that he's not worthy for, even though he is. And the unique thing about
sweet, and he just is so he loves her so much that it doesn't. But it's hard because he knows she's the. I mean, well, I'm not going to give too much of it up, but he just loves her.
He's a little bit more insightful and sometimes a little bit more quick on the draw than Marana is. So he's a sharp cookie and in every way just as good as anybody else. So this first book is Marana coming to terms with her power and who she is and what is she going to do about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I also wanted to know, when it's really interesting when you're creating the characters, but then when you can have the bad guy, so to speak, or the evil guy, how do you wrap that up to where he comes in and this is you know what he thinks all the time. So you're really right there in his head. It's really cool.
One of the things that I hated about old school fantasy is the bad guy, and I will call my bad guy the Dark Trine. He's more of an antagonist, which is really more comes to loggerheads with the protagonist rather than evil. Although he is,
yeah.
Like most of the time they have this incredible power. and they just want to conquer everything and kill everyone. Why? I mean, why would you want to rule over just minions, you know, or you know, lay waste to everything? I mean, it makes no sense. So that's why I really wanted to make the antagonist a bona fide character, you know, that you get to see his point of view and understand what he's thinking and why he's thinking. And what's so unique about the Dark Trine, or he doesn't call himself the Dark Trine because he doesn't think he's dark, is he uses the old Kinderran language word for Ein Magna, which means great one. Ein means one, and Magna, like magnificent, means great. So the Ein Magna thinks that he is going to end this war that's been plaguing Kinderra for 3,000 years. And he's kind of an ends justify the means kind of guy, which, you know, he does some pretty despicable things, but he thinks he's doing it for a good cause and for the, you know, things will come out, you know, better in the end.
Right.
So
yeah, and Marana, meeting him, it's just very interesting how that even happened. Share a little bit about that without giving him, you know, it all away.
Well, like I said, you get into the Ein Magnus. He believes he's so he, you know, the way he explains things, you know, we get a lot of introspection, or he's talking to his second in command, his lieutenant, how he, you know, explains things, rationalizes things, and, you know, how he accepts both, basically, you know, the dark side of the force and the light side of the force, which I like to call the light from within or the power from without. And just real briefly, all their power, you know, comes from within, and that's the Falkeen believe that should be the only source for your power. The Kinnar, the bad guys, if you were, they have a way. They can also, well, everyone can tap into life forces, life essence outside, bring it in and use that to augment it. Any of the magic users can do that, and that's another interesting thing. The war is over philosophy, not over territory, not over, you know, somebody trying to, you know, run some other country. It's over philosophy. And when you have conflicts that are based on gray, that are based on philosophy, makes things much richer. And where are you going to sit? And the way that he explains it, that their deity gave them all of life, gave them Kinderra, gave them the ability to do this, and they're going to use it for the betterment of you know, the rest of Kinderra. The Falkeen find it abhorrent to be able to take those powers. They could if they wanted to, it's just they have a moral choice and they don't. So that sets up the war, what's right and what's wrong, you know, so.
Well, and I love the fact that you had her parents, Marana's parents, are really powerful characters, especially the mom. You know, she's got a powerful position, and, you know, she really cracks it with Marana.
Marana's mom, Desde Pinal, and here's a little bit of insight. Marana, the name comes from a town here in Arizona, Marana, Marana, and Pinal is Pinal County, and we just kind of tweaked it together and put that together. Desde is actually kind of the Spanish word for then, I think, if my memory serves. But I just thought it sounded as a beautiful name. So Desde Pinal is basically kind of like the Jedi Master, the leader of her province's Falkeen. So she's kind of in a governor role. And because of that, she is the ultimate working mom. She's the ultimate working mom. And she has to make some extraordinarily difficult decisions to save the greater good, which she knows may put her beloved only child, Marana, in harm's way and could likely get her killed. But how could she keep her own child back and send every other mother and father's, you know, son or daughter to go off to war? So that's a really difficult position to be in. So he has that. Marana's father, Carl, he's kind of like he's a commander, like a 4-star general, if you will, of the Dark Ops or the Navy SEALs. Kind of, he is a strike unit, and he's a badass, but he's also getting tired. He has fought this war for virtually all of his life, certainly the last 30 years. He's in his early 50s, Desde's in her late 40s, and he's starting to think he's past his shelf life. And when you start to have those doubts about your use and whether you're doing anything to help the world, sooner or later, you got to find a way out of that. Otherwise, you're probably going to get killed. So he's trying to struggle with finding his own self-worth at the same time.
Yeah,
so
and I really like that part of it.
Yeah.
Oops, I'm sorry.
No.
I love that he had those doubts and how he was dealing with them, and and even talking to his wife about them. So it was really great to have.
Doesn't imitate life. I always said I'm not Marana at all. I'm a mishmash of Carl or Teague. I'm not worthy. Mea culpa.
Yeah, I think you're right on about that. So tell us, what else do you want to share about the story part of it, the journey that they're taking it's a really fascinating, I have to say, I read this book and it is right on par with Harry Potter. Hands down, this is an incredible book. It keeps you interested, and it just really comes alive in your head. Like, it's just really, it's really well done. So congratulations for that.
Well, thank you. I think a lot of writers, especially when we're doing something more imaginative fiction like this, we're taking dictation of the movie in our head. This first book, like so many first books, especially if it's a brand new fantasy series taking place in a world you've never seen before, I've got a lot to do to introduce you to the world, to the system of magic, to the cultural influences and norms, because we have the overwhelming majority of the population does not have magic, and we're starting to get some culture clashes. And that's another undercurrent that's running through that will become a major issue in the other books down the road. So we've got a lot of moving parts that I had to really, really work on my exposition, so I'm not force feeding you. So this sets up everything, and I wanted to make sure, even though it's the opening, chapter, to make sure there is a lot of tension. We, of course, culminate in a nice, huge, big, juicy battle scene from several different points of view with lots of, put on your special effects hat and imagine with me, if you will. Imagine these massive armies like Lord of the Rings, and their amulets, the defenders can use them as weapons. So imagine pretty much a laser beam shooting back and forth, and the clash and, fire, and all hell's breaking loose. So we have a nice, wonderful battle scene, but most of the tension in this first book comes from Marana's situations and her decisions, what she does, what she doesn't do, how she deals with them. And she's, she's trying desperately to find, what to do, find the right thing to do, but what is that? And so there's a lot of that. So,
well, and I love the fact that that's who she is, and she knows that making a choice, whether she makes a choice or doesn't make a choice, is a choice, and right. she's very thoughtful about what she's looking at, because there are severe consequences either way.
There's severe consequences either way. You're so right. Either, she can embrace her trine powers, but then she thinks, she's going to, wreak havoc on her province at least, or her city at least, if not much further ramifications. But if she doesn't, people in the present could die because she wasn't there to save them, or, you know, oh, I can't let anybody know about my healing aspect as well. Well, she can't let people die if they're right in front of her. What does she do? Could she run away? She could, but she can't run away from her aspect. She can't run away from who she is. So this is Marana trying to work out her paralysis, her analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And
she
ripping
does,
her apart.
yeah.
It's literally ripping her apart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And it's gets a little emotional.
Yeah.
At those places.
Yeah.
It's really great. What has been the best thing that has happened since you finished the book, got it published, got it out there? I mean, were you expecting the kind of reviews that you've been getting? Because you've been getting some incredible reviews.
Thank you. Well, the first most surprising thing was just when this came, and it was real and it was physical. It was no longer just in my head. It was no longer, a doc file or PDF file. It was a real thing, and it looked amazing. And my name is on there. I mean, and it's in the gorgeous, vanilla paper with that beautiful font, and just it becoming real. It's like being pregnant and you finally deliver your baby. You've had this wonderful thing happening within you for 9 months. Then finally you get to see this wonderful child of yours. It's very, very similar process. I fortunately do not have children, but I'm sure I agonize just as much. Literally blood, sweat, and tears. So that was amazing. After so many years, I tried for good year to find traditional publishing and was not able to connect with an agent, unfortunately. And so I had a do or die moment. It was over Christmas 2019. And I'm like, either I have to find a way and self-publish this or just put it away. And it's never going to see the light of day. And I thought, no, damn it. I've worked too hard on this. Marana's story is too good to be told. She wants to show the world that you can be flawed and still do wonderful things. And so we set about switching our entire gears to self-publish this. And for any of you that are writers out there, it's a daunting task, but do not cheat. Do not skimp. It costs money, a lot of money. But find out what you do and do well, and you can do those things. I'm pretty good at designing some graphic design and making tweets. But I have Sherry because I don't know how to pitch to a TV station. I mean, I could, hi, would you read my book? I sold Girl Scout cookies the same way. And so, you have to do these things. You got to learn about formatting, and I hired professional illustrators. Don't skip. The last thing you should skip on is a cover design and editing. Yeah. Do not pay the big bucks. You're going to pay $2,000 for editing a book. You're going to, if you want it really done well. You're going to pay $1,000 for a good cover, at least, if not more. It just has to be. If you want to be up there with the Sarah Mosses of the world, the Lee Bardugo, whatever, you're going to have to pay. So because when you and I first met, I mean, the cover, after I had read the book and I saw the cover that you had at the time, I'm one of these bold PR people, but I was like, I'm not seeing it. It's not rich enough for the content that it is between the covers. And I get chills just talking about it because it was like, one of our first conversations, and it was about, what we were doing. And I mean, it was almost there, but there was just something that it just didn't have that. And I worked with so many authors over the years that the cover is everything because people perceive the story from that angle. I mean,
And,
that's what's going to have you, or whatever book you pick up, whether it's, online through your favorite bookseller or Amazon, or you go to Barnes & Noble, it's the cover that jumps out at you. The same way that you pick out a bottle of wine. That's why they have all the cute little animals on your wine, or whatever. That's the first thing that's going to draw your eye to it. And we chose some things. If you look, a lot of cover design, they used to have like a 3/4 camera shot of some action scene from the plot. Then what they're doing a lot today, it's very, first of all, I think it's very girly, but there's a lot of curly cues. There's a lot of stuff, or there's a lot of what looks like paisley and all of this. And I find it very difficult to look at that and parse out what the book's about. It sometimes takes a while to even find where the heck is the title. So we chose something, we came up with something that was a bit more sparse. And then this color red of an amulet means something in the book. And then Sherry was so right, it was more gray, and she said, let's put a little bit of green into it, because anybody who knows something about color design, green and red are on opposite sides of the color wheel, so they cause some tension and they make each other pop. Mm-hmm. So this was very much thought through, our cover, and all to make you think and look and to stand out a little bit against a sea of other covers.
Well, and it paid off because, and you helped tweak the ending of the of the cover. And I was literally sitting getting my nails done, looking over and saw a marble vase. Mm-hmm. And I texted her and I said, this is what I'm talking about. So I took 2 or 3 shots of it, texted it to you and said, this is what I'm seeing. So it was really wonderful to work together on that. And it obviously paid off because you've gotten good reviews on your cover. That is not easy to get.
Yeah. The wonderful thing about that, and when she suggested that, and it popped into my head, I don't know do we have any old school people here that might know some of the old movie posters from that Lord of the Rings cartoon, the Ralph Bakshi version? And that was this slate granity thing, and it looked chiseled in that kind of Gaelic-y looking font. This very much harkens to that. So it kind of gives you that feeling, and plus there's a sense of age to it as well. Yeah. So it really dovetails in with a lot of themes.
Yeah, it turned out really, really well, and I can't wait for everybody to,
can't wait for everybody to cover
up front and personal. It's really, and it won this. I got at least two of the stickers that you get for some of your awards, but Cindy was chosen as epic fantasy for New York City's Big Book Award last year, and those are submissions that come in from all over the world, so that was really incredible for her.
That was huge.
That was such a great email when you sent that to me. I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't cry. I was just like, what? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
After having so many people just shoot this story down, wouldn't give it the time of day, said that it was stupid, said that, I even had one person said, I hope your protagonist hurry up and dies so I don't have to read anymore. I had other people say, with a query letter, well, there's not even enough for a story here, let alone a novel. And and then to have that kind of validation, to have Sherry and we have Anne Vadine on the call, which was my first cleanup artist on editing, and to get these 2 women that had such validation for what, excuse me.
Anne is very gifted, and she knows a good story too when she sees it.
It was everything. At last, somebody outside of myself believed in me, and that means the world to me.
Well, but who else believed in you the whole entire way? Where did you get your messages from? Because you tried to quit. Because we have deemed you the unsuccessful quitter, but you heard from the good Lord above, and you were to move
That's
forward.
my other hashtag. I should probably get a henna tattoo put on. Unsuccessful quitter. This has been a labor of love and a passion project for 20 years. And it was, my prayer life is deep, is a deep connection for me. And, every time I would stop, I would pray, and it would help me overcome roadblocks, or, I'm lucky I don't get a lot of writer's block, but sometimes I'm like, how am I going to approach the scene? And then poof, I get it. Just keeps me going. And how many times, you have something there, oh my God, I can't do this. It's too overwhelming. And I'm going to quit. And then, next morning, innumerable times. Like I said, I quit almost every day because I'm just like, oh, I'm so fed up with this. Like even putting this event together, I'm like, hello world, we're here. And, It seemed like it was going so slow at first. I'm thrilled. It looks like we have a good 14 people. I mean, there was a point where it looked like 7, which I if it was just 1, I wouldn't care. I'd be just as happy. But to have it, kind of double in the last, few hours is just absolutely thrilling. And at the end of the day, this is why I work so hard and pray so hard and never quit, is because I'm giving it all to you guys, your readers. You're the one I'm doing this for. I have a very solemn promise to you that I am giving you the very best I can possibly do. No stone goes unturned. I hire the best professionals I can possibly afford. There should be no difference between my book and a book you get anywhere else. And I work very hard on that, because the time you give me reading is priceless. You're giving me something that you're never going to give back. A little nugget of your life you're giving to me. So I sure as hell am going to make that worthy of the time you spend with me.
Well, you did it. No question about it. And there's a lot of organizations in the publishing world that believe that as well. So you have gotten, Indie Reader got a great review from them. Book Life, which is a division of Publishers Weekly.
We made the quarterfinal for the 2020 Fiction Awards, so that was huge.
Yeah, it was huge. So there's quite a few, and if you can go on to CK Donnelly on Facebook or Instagram, you can see some of those, because we have published those. We tried to publish them as often as we can, just because they're just, some people want to know what the critics, so to speak, say. And they've been just really brought tears to both of our eyes, because it's just, she deserves every word that she's getting of encouragement.
Well, it's very validating. And I put those out there not to brag. I put those out there to convey something to readers and potential readers, people that are curious. Say, hey, look, I busted my butt making sure I'm giving you something that's valid. And at least I have some people of some report, if you will, that are saying, yeah, this was pretty good. So the time and money, frankly, that you spend with me, is going to mean something, is going to be worth something. So that's why I put it out there.
It's not pretty good.
Well, okay, yeah, for the accolades.
Only, I know. She's like, yeah, exactly. My mother just said, shout your accomplishments. Yeah. That's why she has me, but still, I mean, yeah. Yeah. So we're getting close to almost 20-minute till, because we're going to take some Q&A, but what else would you like them to know about the book itself, just to kind of give them another little tag to get them in? Because I'm telling you, you will not regret your purchase if you get this book, because you can't put it down once you start it.
Like I said, it's traditional, but not traditional. It has some of those feelings of, kind of old school, high fantasy, epic fantasy, but we've spun everything. the love triangle that we have is more of a father-daughter romance between Marana, Carl, her father, and her mentor. And who is she going to, glom onto and give that, daughterly love? So we've done something like that. As we've said, the antagonist is somebody who thinks he's good. The protagonist is someone who thinks she's bad. There are very interesting minor characters. I think everybody's falling in love with Binti and Morgan, and I promise we will give them their own series. I want to be doing graphic novel series with them, so hold on someday. But there is certainly that intention to do that because they're rock stars and they have such a beautiful little romance. So everybody's got a compelling story. As I said, this is a diverse world, so that means everything that definition is. We get more of that in the later books, but we certainly have all races and men and women fight, and so there's all of that, different landscapes, and it's just something that I think you can identify with it. Yes, this is a medieval-ish world, but we've all been that lost young person. We've all been the young person who thinks their love interest, they're not worthy of. We've all been a worried parent, or to some degree, or something. We've all, struggled with the decisions that we've had to make for our jobs or something. And we've all even, just coming through a pandemic, we've all worried about what's our future going to be. These are all the themes that are in this book, and it's extraordinarily relatable. And I think, kids 14 to 140 can read this, and I hope that you do. I'd love for households to read this and everybody talk. And, I didn't know, adults felt that way. Or, oh, yeah, I remember when I was a kid struggling with that. Hey, son, do you struggle with that too? So it'd be great if this ends up being a little bit of a forum for some meaningful family time.
Oh, I think that, yeah, exactly. And there's definitely a lot there for families to talk about. It's really good in that respect, that it's not going to be a book where you read it and if you have a son or a daughter and then you're like, well, I don't even know what to talk to them about in this book. There's just so much that you can talk about and really glean some really great information, whatever side you're on, the parent or the child. And there's a lot. Oh yeah, exactly, right. Well, my mother's on and she's 80 years old and she never read this genre before. And I just said, you're going to love it. And so she's like, okay. So I got her a copy of the book and she couldn't put it down.
Bless her.
So, yeah, she loves it. She loved it. And I have a 14 and a 17-year-old niece, and it's like pulling teeth to get them. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. I mean, I know they got school, but, hey.
All right, should we answer some questions?
Let's do some questions. Let me pull it up here.
All right.
So Anne really popped in first. Let's answer her. She said, tell us how you first thought of this story idea. What was the inspiration?
Like pretty much everything in my life, Star Wars. I had written back in 1996, is probably before some of you might have even been born. I wrote a Star Wars fanfic, full-length fanfic novel. And I had friends read it and they said, yeah, this is pretty good. You're pretty decent writer, but, like being a cover band, you're never really going to get anywhere unless you come up with your own stuff. And I'm like, challenge accepted. So I'm like, how can I take some of the elements of Star Wars that I love so much and transform them and make them wholly unique into my own world? And that's kind of where it began. So, I thought of the system of magic and, okay, what does that mean? And, I didn't want to go to different worlds, but I wanted to create one world or one land, country, continent that was very rich, that you get that feeling of traveling to different places. And that takes place more in the subsequent books rather than this first one, but we do get a little bit of that. And so that's kind of where it all came from. In my fanfic Star Wars novel, there was a very minor but pivotal minor character, and I knew her backstory, and it was so interesting. I took that, tweaked it, and blew it up, and eventually she became Marana Panal.
And were you inspired by any other authors when you started writing this?
A lot of probably some old school. There was a series called the Donnelly series by Catherine Kurtz. She was well known back in the day. We're talking 80s. She had kind of a medieval-ish story, and she had this very interesting thing. It's kind of like an alternative Wales and UK, kind of like an alternative history. But she had quotes that began each one of her chapters. She had epigrams from the Bible. And I just loved that concept of having epigrams instead of character title. Or excuse me, instead of chapter titles. Same thing in Dune. We're all talking about Dune now, Frank Herbert's Dune. They had, some epigrams, and I just loved that feeling. So I, used that. Terry Brooks is a god, and so he, with his Sword of Shannara, his Shannara series, and loved some of his elements. Of course, Lord of the Rings. Dragon Riders of Pern. I love that symbiosis that the Dragon Riders get with their dragons. And I loved that concept. So that's kind of where I get that symbiotic connection with the amulet. And it's fun if you think about some quasi-physics, how, crystal structures work and how they vibrate at certain frequencies, and they have what's called piezoelectric properties, which means they can manipulate electricity. There's a tweaking of real science in there. I call it metaphysics or quasi-physics. So, there's a lot of my favorite stories have been tweaked to serve my needs.
What were the name of the two authors that when you got one of the reviews, they mentioned those two women? Do you remember off the top of your head?
The name of the authors?
Yeah. I can't remember I can't remember the names in the books, but one of them had a series. I think had written three. It was on her third or fourth one, and Candace put in Dune and the Dragon Riders of Pern. She put the links in there. But yeah, I can't. I'll have to write that down for next time because it was really
that's
quite impressive when I looked up those women.
Yeah, the author of Dragon Riders of Pern is Anne McCaffrey, and she was wonderful. She wrote some other things, but that was kind of like her main series. Like I said, Terry Brooks with the Shannara, he's still going. He's still out there. The other woman's name that I mentioned was Catherine Kurtz. I don't know if she's still in print anymore, but anyway, it was good.
Well, those two questions were for Anne. So thank you so much for asking that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So from Candace, she said, "What scene or section brought you the most joy to write?" Are you going to be able to say?
That's a tough one. Because usually there's a horrible but very apt description in the writing world that we kill our daughters. Please, I'm not trying to offend anybody. Basically, that means you usually end up having to delete your favorite scenes. But there is, Marana's crisis comes to a head, and that scene was deliciously dark and desperate to write. She's run away she's left a big ceremony and she's run away and hiding in this library. And instead of this, wonderful place where this is a storehouse of knowledge, I describe it very much as if she's running into a tomb, very sepulchre, very dark, very heavy, full of death imagery. So that one was very fun. Which what does that say about me? One of the other ones that was very fun is I guess it's not a spoiler. Towards the end of the book, it's kind of like Teague's denouement. He's shell-shocked for a little while. He's, experiencing trauma and shock, and writing that kind of like Faulkner as a lay dying, I am a fish, I am a fish. It's very disjointed and very different than his typical point of view, and then slowly merge that back into himself, where he's picking himself up and using, anger a bit, but in a good way. And it snaps him out of it, and he finds purpose through that. But just the way that scene morphs, that was very, very much fun to write.
Kim asked if you are wearing an amulet. She loves your necklace. By the way, I do too, and I want dibs on wearing that at some point.
Close. It is my hope, and send your cards and letters, folks. I desperately want to get a merchandising contract with Pandora and have Pandora jewelry and create little charms, very affordable Swarovski crystals and all these different colors, and you can collect them. And that is a hope. We haven't had any conversations yet. Anybody? But,
yeah, right.
So I absolutely would love to. No, I think this is either from the boutique that I love, Target. Oh, Target. It might have been even Charming Charlie. May they rest in peace. I'm so sad that they're gone.
I know. I love
they look like Jolly Rancher candies.
Yeah, I love the colors. So my mom wanted to know, do you ever think you should have changed an event in the book, or feel fully satisfied with it all? Good question.
That's wow.
He was paying attention. Good question, Mom.
Wow, holy cow. That's a very good question. And yes and no. I'll tell you, there was a very pivotal scene that was smack dab in the middle of the book. In fact, and I always had a hard time transitioning from Marana's state of mind, where she's at the lowest of her low, to this very important scene. And it was always it never made sense to be there, and I couldn't figure it out. I had a beta reader read the manuscript, and she suggested putting it at the butt end of the novel, put it at the very end, and it became the cliffhanger ending. It was a big risk on my part to make such a cliffhanger ending. We all remember Han didn't get rescued from Jabba the Hutt in the middle of Empire Strikes Back, and how enraged we were at that. I didn't want that kind. I still want you to walk away from having a very satisfied story that felt finished and complete. So I worked very hard on that. But moving that scene to where it stands now and becomes the cliffhanger ending was, I have to thank that woman. Her name is Andrea Quintana, and she ran a little indie publishing firm. And that was a brilliant suggestion, and it totally transformed the book.
Oh, and it worked.
Yeah.
Remember? Yeah, I texted you. I emailed you. I was like, what? That was kind of that was similar to what Constance, she asked about the ending. You know what I mean? Was your original ending the same as the ending you now have? So obviously it wasn't, because you flipped it, because that you got that guidance. But you knew, that was, you got the guidance that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It just, it sort of just was your typical flat kind of denouement, and off they go. You had some nice introspection and wonder, what's going to happen. But moving this ending the way that we have it now with the cliffhanger made all the difference in the world. And and this is the final version. I've had a million different, this is about the 20th draft. Honestly, it's probably about the 10th substantial draft. There are minor ones in between. But,
so talk a little bit more. Constance also wanted to know a little bit more about the magic system. Because
Oh,
I love, this is what got me, like, initially, I was like, whoa, like, if I could have all those powers, that'd be so awesome.
wouldn't it? Yeah. My magic system, I started, I told you all that, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So I started thinking what we knew about the Force, and absolutely no midichlorians ever. Um, and kind of like, this energy field that surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together. And then I started thinking, if you look at it from a different point of view, it can sound a little nefarious. It can sound a little, energy stealers. We have energy vampires. We've all felt them. They're kind of real day dementors. They walk into the room and you feel the temperature go down. So I said, well, let's kind of think about this. How much more selfless is it that if you have this magical power and you only use your own life essence to manifest whatever the magical power is? How much more selfless is that? And that also speaks to one of the issues I had with a traditional fantasy, that if you're so amazingly powerful, you don't have any limits. Where's the limits? Where's the choices? Well, in my magic system, if you leverage too much power, you could actually kill yourself, or certainly injure yourself, which in fact does happen with Marana. And that's part of the reason why they need amulets. They can do a certain amount without amulets, both Kinnear and Falkine. It's the same power. But allowing them to, like crystals, like, anybody who's played with magnifying glass in the sun and, we're burning leaves, you can condense it, concentrate it, and manifest much larger works with your magic with the amulet. Basically, your life's harmonics and the crystal resonance harmonics of your amulet are close enough so when you choose it, you vibrate at the same time. That's how that choosing occurs. The Kinnear are kind of the opposite. They have the same power as the Falkine. Aspects are the same, but what they do is they use just a little bit of their own innate power to draw in life energies from outside themselves. It could be something as innocuous as just, the plants at the forest floor. Could be an animal, or at worst, it could be another person. And they could draw so much they could kill that person. So that's very distasteful. And how the Falkine look at that is you are using life for your own choice, for your own ends. If I'm just using what I have innately, I'm the only one who gets hurt. It's only, it's my choice to use me. But if I'm using you, and so that's also the crux of their philosophical differences.
Yeah, that was good. You totally answered that one. What else do we have here? Have I gotten? Okay, so Candace also asked, was Tolkien an influence of yours? And because you mentioned how you created a language and he was known for that. And, we just had Tolkien Day like a couple days ago or so.
Oh, absolutely. I just loved his breadth and depth. And what was a very interesting thing, why and how Tolkien wrote some of this, is being from England, there is a cultural viewpoint that because the British Isles were conquered so many times by other nations, typically from Scandinavia, the Norsemen and that sort of thing, they've often felt they didn't have their very own authentic First Nation type history. So Tolkien spent time giving the English, the British Isles kind of like their own history. So that's why Tolkien and the movies that were done by Peter Jackson are so rich, because they approached him as a history. They approached it almost like Shakespeare, not like, just some Saturday afternoon, novel that you're going to polish off, except for Tom, whatever his name is, stop the story cold. And anyway, So I loved that feeling. So that's part of the reason why I developed my conlang, my languages, to give you that sense of history and organic culture that is growing and evolving and changing. And that's all based on Tolkien. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let me see. Gosh, we're almost at top of the hour, and I think we got through all the questions. And
yeah,
does anybody have anything else they want to put in the chat or in the Q&A before we sign off?
Well, I have a question that I always like to end with, as we all know in the writing world, that the book we are celebrating today is not the book that the author is working on. So can you tell us what is in the pipeline for you, and then also where people can find you online so that they can stay informed and up to date on what you've got going on?
Absolutely. Well, yes, of course. We are getting down to the nitty-gritty on book 2. Books 2 and 3 have been completed. Book 2, we've got the cover. We're sending it out for copy edit, and we're going to start formatting it and all that stuff. We hope to release end of summer.
Awesome.
So that's going to be coming. Trine Fallacy is book 2. Book 3, like I said, is completed, and once we get, my second child out the door and support this one a little bit more, we will work on that, but at least that's done. Book 4 has an outline completed, a substantial outline. I'm a plotter, not a pantser. I need to have some sort of roadmap so I know where I'm going. Everything can change, but at least I have some idea where I'm going. Mm-hmm. So that'll be a lot of fun. I am working on an audiobook. Those won't be out for a while yet. Probably not released until after book 3 gets released. But I am working on those. And everything else, I do have plans to do a graphic novel, like I said, of Morgan and Binthy. That's kind of on the back burner, but there is that hope. So anybody's an artist out there who's interested, start DMing me now, which leads into, you can find everything on ckdonnelly.com. That's my website, and pretty much all my handles are CK Donnelly Trine. That's TRINE. On Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram, and I'm pretty active. So I would love for you guys to keep on giving me your questions and comments. I love to keep this conversation going. That would be just the most wonderful thing. So.
Well, yay! Well, thank you so very much, CK, and thank you, Sherry, for being our fearless leader and moderator for the event. And thank you so much. Oh yeah,
and thank you, Constance, and a huge thank you to Mysterious Galaxy. I discovered you folks.
It's so much fun.
You have entertained and worked with some of the top authors of the day. Jim Butcher is my personal idol, and he was there not too long ago. And to be hosted by a bookstore that he grades so not worthy. So it's a real thrill for me to be here tonight. And of course, we have to thank all of you folks that came online, gave up your Monday nights, and asked some great questions. And if you're reading the book, I hope you enjoy it. If you haven't yet, I hope you just read the back cover, see if it's like something that you want. You can always ask me more questions, and I'll try and answer them. And I just thank everyone for tonight. I wouldn't do this without you.
It was a pleasure getting to host you. So thank you so much for sharing the journey of this book. And everyone, just a second to go out and support Trine Rising. There'll be the purchase book button down below. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to say thank you so very much for joining us. We hope you have a lovely rest of the evening, and we will see you all next time. Goodbye, CK. Goodbye, Sherry. Goodbye, everyone.